Hello, Happy New Year, welcome to my channel. This is Deadlifts Donuts and my name is Katie and I'm here to share a no-nonsense approach to wellness, strength, balance, all of the good stuff that comes with a lifestyle journey. And today I wanted to talk a little bit more about my own journey where I went from 108 kilos or 240 pounds down to 68 kilos or 150 pounds. So that is a 40 kilo or 90 pound weight loss, which is pretty significant, if I don't say so myself. And I guess one of my goals for this channel is to be the person that I would have liked to have seen at the start of my journey. So if you're starting out on your journey or maybe feeling a little bit misguided perhaps, maybe this is the place for you. So, as I said, talking a little bit about, I guess, the backstory, the tea, if you will, as to how I went or how I got to being such a weight in the first place and the process of losing it. So, how long did it take me it's a pretty tricky question to answer because we've got, I guess, the most recent time that I tried to lose weight and the overall picture, like my life. So what I'll do is I'll answer the short version first to really put it into perspective. This particular grind from decision to now took me about 18 months. That being said, I had many failures and many starts and restarts before I even got to that point. So if you're talking big picture, it's taken me about 7 years to really learn all the things I needed to learn, gather some wisdom along the way. Again, had a few failures, which is perfectly okay. It's part of the human experience. But yeah, it's a multifaceted answer to that question. So that is, I guess, the short version. The long version is that my, I guess, first attempt at trying to lose weight, again, it's really tricky. Where do I begin? I tried a couple of times throughout my 20s. And I guess to paint a picture of where it all started, I actually was quite skinny growing up. So I was quite a small kid, small teenager. And the weight loss, or I guess the weight gain rather, began as I approached my early 20s. So I started working at a large burger chain. Probably not the first one you think of, maybe the second one you'd think of, maybe even the third one. Not the most popular burger chain, I'll just put it that way. And I guess as it was, being surrounded by fast food day in, day out, not really having a lot of education behind me in the first place, the pounds started to pile on little by little. And by my mid-20s, I realised that I was pretty overweight. So I was already at that sort of 220, 230 pounds by my mid to late 20s. Then in 2019, I went on a pretty significant weight loss journey where I lost about 27 kilos. I don't know what that is in pounds, but pretty reasonable, about 55 pounds, I think. So a pretty significant amount of weight. And then I'm sure, I know I'm not the only person that experienced this, but COVID happened. And I think a lot of people can empathize with that story. COVID did strip away a lot of the coping mechanisms I'd built around the first time. I would argue that I probably didn't have the best strategies the first time around to begin with. So a little bit of chaos ended up happening, and one thing led to another, and I gained all my weight back and some. So after COVID had done its rounds, I found it really, really tricky to get back on track. There was a big part of me that thought I kind of knew the process. And to be honest, I think most of us do know the process. It's just actually strategizing and making it happen that's the hard part for a lot of people, and so was true for myself. I would attempt to get back on track and life would happen, excuses would happen, and sure enough, I'd fall off the wagon. So this took place over 4 years. I'd get back on track for a little bit, I'd fall off track and back on and back off again. Somewhere in that liminal space between my first journey and my second journey, I found a really wonderful PT. So for a significant amount of time between COVID and my last attempt at losing weight, I was actually training, not consistently though. So that was a key thing, that I thought I was doing enough by showing up to the gym once a week, and sure enough, it wasn't enough. I tried a few other little gyms, another few different programs, and just never stuck to it long enough to see the results. And so I'd fall off and come back on and fall back off again, and just all the nonsense. So where I like to say that my journey actually began this time around, where I consider myself successful, is in September of 2024, so about 18 months ago. I can't actually answer specifically where it all started, but one thing I will say is I was pretty heavily involved with a meditation group at the time, and once a week I'd go off to this meditation class, and I would spend some time there working on my subconscious mind and doing a few, deep dive exercises into my subconscious. And the teacher that I worked with at that time was running a inner child workshop, which I know this sounds potentially a little bit out there for some of my viewers, but this was where I identify as getting the ball rolling. So I'd done this workshop, and during that time I had an epiphany that no matter what I've been doing, the relationship with myself had always been flawed. So it didn't matter what diet, what program, what thing I was doing, my relationship with myself was never complete. It was never a healthy one. So now, in hindsight, I see that every attempt to try and sort my life out was futile, because I didn't see myself worthy as change. I didn't see myself worthy of respect or the work required to make the big changes in life. So why would I do it? And with this inner child workshop that I'd done, I'd had this epiphany and realised that the way I treat myself is total nonsense, and I don't deserve to treat myself that way anymore. So I woke up the morning after that inner child workshop, and I decided enough was enough, and I was really going to make a change for real this time. But I remember listening to my internal monologue and going, "Oh, sure, Katie, you said that every time you've attempted to lose weight, so what's different this time?" And honestly, for the longest time, I did not know. I didn't want to identify it as a journey of wellness or weight loss or anything for the longest time. It was just a very slow, step-by-step, day-by-day approach. The day after the inner child workshop that I'd done, I decided to go for a walk and to leave my phone at home and just see how that felt. And during my walk, I realised how unfit I was. I believe I'd only walked 500 metres, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, and I was walking, so where I live is very hilly. Just for a little bit of context, I was walking up this hill and I was puffed out and I started crying, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not okay. For some more context, I'm only 32 years old, so at the time, even younger, I was 31. And I realised this is no way to live, and if I continue down the trajectory of which I was going, it's only going to get worse from there. So that walk was a huge wake-up call for me. So a pretty productive week back in September 2024, where I've had this inner child workshop and I've had this really profound walk, and then I had a standard medical checkup done and had some not so great news about the condition of my heart. So I had a bit of high blood pressure. My labs didn't come back super great, so that was another wake-up call. So in the space of a week, I had three pretty big hits. So again, I was still doing this step-by-step thing. I wasn't really thinking about making a significant weight loss change or journey at this point. I just knew I had to stop treating myself the way I was. So day 2, I went out for a walk again. And day 3, I went out for a walk again. And this continued for some time. And there was no active decision to like increase my mileage or start to eat different foods for quite some time, but eventually it started to slowly make its way through. So yeah, I guess little by little it started to pick up around about October 2024. So about a month into this process, I decided to try a few more things. So I'd carry my water bottle with me every day. I decided to pick up a few more days at the gym, give that a bit more of a go. And yeah, I just continued these little steps over time. And I guess it's really hard for me to identify where I put those steps into place, because now looking back, it seems, that was the start of it. But now I'm doing all these amazing things. So, I train at the gym 3 days a week. I run 3 days a week. I do plenty of walking. I drink 2.5 litres of water a day. I'm very focused on my macronutrients and my calories, and so many different layers here with me now that I don't really know where along the journey I picked it up, but it was just little by little is the best way to explain it. So that, in summary, is my weight loss journey. Some of the things I wanted to talk about were my key struggles and my key wins along my path. So for me, the biggest struggles I had along my journey was battling a few health things. So for me, I had really terrible insomnia at the start. It made it really tricky to get enough rest to want to exercise the next day and to eat properly, because I was on the back foot every day. So one of my biggest priorities in the beginning was fixing my sleep. And with that, I guess part and parcel of that was reducing my screen time, because I knew that the biggest perpetrator of me being up late at night was me also being on my phone and not really taking into account my screen time. So I addressed that first, and when I was able to get a good night's sleep, I felt motivated and comfortable enough to go for a walk the next day. I'd have a clear and rational mind, so I would start thinking about my food choices more effectively. I would make more conscious decisions about what I was putting on my plate and into my body. And so that was really important that I addressed that first and foremost. Another struggle I had was understanding the need to be disciplined in my journey. Everyone talks about being motivated and having the oomph to go and do what you need to do, but the real tricky part of doing a long-term lifestyle change is being disciplined. So it's getting up on the days that you don't want to and showing up for yourself on days that you're really not feeling the greatest. And that was true for me. I had to really push myself to get out of bed, whether I liked it or not, go for a walk, whether I liked it or not, knowing that the only caveats to that are if I was feeling really sick or injured, of course I'd honour that, but there was really no excuse to not get out of bed, to not go for a walk, to not get my nutrients in and things like that. So that was a really big struggle for me, and I think that's a pretty common one for a lot of people, is just building that discipline muscle. What I can say is it got easier over time. So the more that I made the choices to do the things that would nourish me in the long term, the easier that it got. Another thing I really struggled with is along the line of my journey, I was training for a Spartan race, and I actually injured myself because I went too hard too fast. And that put a real big spanner in the discipline thing, right? Because I've got a very all or nothing mindset. So for me to be going from running and exercising and doing all these awesome things to having an injury that put me out of action for 6 weeks really made it tough. But again, it's an interesting kind of tough, because I learnt about my body in the process and learnt how to rest and recover and nourish myself. So it was really interesting to go down that path and learn the different ways to look after my body when something wasn't quite right. So in that process, I learned about cross training. Again, all or nothing mindset. My brain was like, well, I can't run, I can't do these specific things, but I could stretch and I could still weightlift and I could still ride a bike and I could still swim. So I learned about cross training and sort of thinking outside the box, which was really helpful to me at that time. So yeah, I would say those would be my key struggles in my journey. The other thing is, again, the discipline thing, but more around the food side of things. In the beginning, a little bit of it was the education to make the right choices food-wise, and then there's also the discipline of not eating the thing that I know wasn't good for me. So that was pretty tricky, and again, I think is pretty standard because we're learning, we're rewiring our brain to make different choices every day, so I really did struggle with that. And that's pretty much it, to be honest. Like all things, not every day was sunshine and roses. Some days were really hard, but for the most part, I really enjoyed my journey. So I had a lot of wins along the way as well, which was really awesome. So some of my key wins were that, and I dropped it before, I ran a Spartan race, which I never thought I would do. If you told me 5 years ago I'd be running a Spartan race, I would have laughed at you. I would have been like, are you kidding me? Partly because I was unfit. The other reason is because I was a chronic asthmatic, which also did resolve itself largely throughout my journey. I had run a Tough Mudder in the past, but it was so difficult for me that I never thought I'd see myself there again. So I was really happy to do that. Another big win of mine, I touched on it just then, my asthma is now under control, my sleep is under control, I just get out and do so many amazing things now. So even yesterday on a lazy Sunday, I got out and rode on my bike just to enjoy the sunshine, and what would have been a chore for me in the past was actually something really quite enjoyable. My mindset has changed so much. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm pretty negatively geared. I'm a bit of a pessimist, I'll be honest. So my mindset is a lot more optimistic now. So instead of assuming or thinking the worst of everything, my mind is automatically on the positive foot. I'm constantly thinking of how to improve, like how could this day get any better? What exciting things are in store for me today? All of that really awesome stuff. So yeah. So that's pretty much it in terms of my struggles and my wins, and my little story time about my weight loss journey. So for anyone watching up until this point, thank you. I really appreciate you. That's amazing. You may be thinking, so I've done the weight loss journey. What's next? As we know, these journeys don't end. So you can lose the weight, you can do all of the things. If you go back to doing what you were doing before, you're going to go back to the way you were before, right? So I've got some pretty big goals in mind to keep me on track and to keep building this awesome lifestyle that I have. The first one is that this January I have the 5K Foam Fest coming up. I also have a Tough Mudder. So I was just talking about how, it was amazing that I did this Spartan last year. Well, I've got 2 races in January ready to go immediately. So pretty excited about that. One thing I did forget to mention in my wins is that along my journey I found Park Run, which was incredible. If you don't know what that is, it's a free weekly timed event that's just a little 5K run. Most communities worldwide do it, I believe. At least here in Australia there's plenty. I know there's plenty in the US and the UK as well. So one of my goals for this year is to be more active in that. I want to spend some time volunteering. I want to spend some time improving my running capacity, and also just a few little things related to how I perform with my running. I have some pretty big gym goals this year. So one of them is to be able to do 3 unassisted pull-ups on the pull-up bar. I can currently do 3/4 of one. So that's another one of my goals, and really the main thing is just to build upon this amazing lifestyle. So a lot of what I intend to do with this channel is to do a lot of fun, silly, slightly chaotic challenges in the name of building up my fitness, but also for you guys, just to give you something fun to watch, or maybe something to laugh at depending on how I go. And that's pretty much all I have to say for this video. I will continue to build upon this over time. Of course, this is a very new channel, so the day is young. There's plenty more to talk about, but I did want to keep it somewhat brief for this time because I'm still learning how to YouTube for starters. I'm still learning to talk on camera, and I have a lot to cover, so I'll be around for quite a while. So if you've watched it this far, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully this has given you a little bit of inspiration. And whilst there was a short and a long answer to how I did this journey, hopefully it inspires you. Yes, it did take me quite a long time to get here, but by the same token, once I decided to really take this seriously and really look after myself, the process was really quick. One thing I've been hearing a lot lately is that the time is going to pass anyway. So if you're thinking about starting your journey, give yourself 6 months of consistency, 6 months of discipline, and you'll be absolutely amazed at your results. You'll get to June this year regardless. So in 6 months' time, you'll get to June and it'll be June 1st, whatever. Or you could get to June 1st with a whole bunch of habits and, goals and things that you've worked towards, and it could be a really fantastic time of the year for you. So I just wanted to share that little bit of insight. I think that's something I needed at the start of my journey, because 18 months ago, I had no idea I'd be in this space. And even 6 months from that starting point, I was a completely different person. So I hope that inspires you. And yeah, that's it. I am going to end it there. But if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for my next one. I'm going to do a deep dive on the actual process of how I went from day one to today. Really give you a bunch of tools and strategies. If you need to lose 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds plus, I'm going to deep dive the process of how I did it and hopefully give you some tools to start you on your journey. So yeah. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and stay tuned. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.